or good evening, wherever you are on the planet. I'm Dr. Yasapa from Zion Law School. I'm back. We're going into the gospel and the zodiac. All right, y'all, the gospel and the zodiac. This is a free class. The gospel and the zodiac, the secret truth about JC, the Christ figure. Okay, so that begs the question, why is the truth a secret? Right? Why is the truth a secret? And then what is the zodiac doing in the Gospels when your Christian leaders have told you that it's of the devil? All right? So maybe there's some truth to what they're saying. Maybe not. I'm here to show you. All right? So don't be scared. All right? Don't be scared, because I'm going to tell you right now the zodiac is in the gospel, but it's not of the devil. But Christianity is of the devil, so to speak, because there is no devil. All right, if y'all don't understand that, watch the videos that I've done on the topic. All right, there is no physical person called the devil. Some of y'all might say, well, what about Hashatan? The Satan. In Job, I suggest that you move away, even abandon the Jewish doctrine and the Hebrew Israelitism. Okay, abandon that and start looking at the texts from a literal point of view. Now, what does that mean? That means you look at the text and you take it for what it is. All right? No collage of verses. All right? So you'll hear many theologians and certain scholars and many Hebrew Israelites talking about, what's the word they use? What is the word they use? Precept upon precept. Line upon line, precept upon precept. I suggest y'all go find out what that literally means and what it's referring to. All right? And I'm intentionally not telling you. If you want to find out, watch the videos on Zion Law School YouTube channel. Give it your utmost consideration. All right? That means put the time and the effort in and do the analysis so that you can use your own mind and come to your own conclusions without being led to accept something. All right? Or you can come to my Saturday morning, 10 a.m. live online class. The link is in the description area of this video. All right? So stop believing stuff just because you hear people saying it and it sounds good. All right? Because it sounds good, but that's about all. All right? So you need to consider the etymological meaning of the words. You also need to examine the grammar. All right? And then you can understand what's being said, all right? But this line upon line and precept upon precept that you've heard about just doesn't hold water, all right? But anyway, let's continue. We are on page, we're in Pisces. For those of you who, this may be your first time, we're in Pisces. Okay, all right. So we're on page 208. Let me make sure. Sometimes I put my bookmark and I don't remember. I put the bookmark, but I don't remember if it's on the left or the right side of the page. So I need to check. All right, yeah, we did this. Let me check. I don't know if we went all the way to the other subheading. Okay, so yes. So let's start on page 208, the very last paragraph, okay, y'all? On page 208, the link to the book, The Gospel and the Zodiac, The Secret Truth About JC, the Christ Figure, is in the description area of the video. Now, these secret truths, they are doozies. They're big, really big, really big. All right? Especially one. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. But if you've been following me, you know which one it is. I think five people unsubscribed. 5 people unsubscribed between now and the last video, or maybe the last 2 days. I guess they don't like what they don't like. I'm assuming they don't like the information about the secret gospel of Mark and what's in it. You know, maybe it made them feel afraid or hurt when I discussed it. All right, because it is disgusting. All right, so page 208, the last paragraph, here we go. We should be alerted to the text heavily symbolic character by the stated dating of events. All right, it is heavily symbolic. He's talking about the end part of the Gospel of Mark is heavily symbolic. All right, and the dates that events happen are thrown off. They thrown off in comparison to the other 3 Gospels. All right? Mark leaves us in no doubt that the series of events with which his Gospel concludes, y'all, and his Gospel is said to be the first, took place at a time of the Jewish Passover celebrations. In this it is not unlikely that a wandering preacher would be present in Jerusalem at Passover time. Okay? So why would there be a preacher in Jerusalem, y'all? They're supposed to be the House of Yasharala. Why would they have somebody preaching religion? Y'all ever think about that? Why? Why would somebody be preaching religion? If you are saying that JC was preaching religion, but they're supposed to be keeping the commandments. Just a distinction to be aware of. A preacher would be present in Jerusalem at Passover time. Nor is it hard for us to envision him antagonizing the authorities so greatly that they would wish to have him killed. However, that such an execution should take place on the very day of the Passover, as Mark declares, is well nigh impossible. All right? So it's possible that a man was out there preaching. All right? He out there preaching on the Passover. Possible, according to the author. It's possible that he would have pissed a lot of people off by preaching. And they might want to kill him, but it is highly unlikely, highly improbable that they would actually terminate him on the Passover. Y'all remember the Passover story. The death angel passes over the houses, right, of Moses' people. Okay? So it's unlikely that he would be killed on the Passover. All right, now this is according to Mark's dating of the events, or the sequence of the events, right? Compared to Matthew, Luke, and John. Mark's is thrown off. All right? His is out of order. That's what I'm trying to say. All right? So let's continue. The city would be full of people during the Passover, right? Who had come from all over the world for the solemn festivities. Now you got people from all over the world, and they're going to kill somebody on Passover and do it publicly. All right? How many enemies or how many more people are they going to make hate them? Okay? That's the author's point. But let's continue. All right. And for normally prudent Roman authorities to risk antagonizing the crowds by executing anyone, prophet or pretender, deifies reason. In addition, that the Jews themselves would not plot an execution on one of the holiest days of the year. Let me repeat that. In addition, that the Jews themselves would plot, not would not, but would plot an execution on one of the holiest days of the year is unthinkable. So this story doesn't match up. That's the author's point. But watch the video that I did with Sanetta called All Abrahamic Religions Are a Fraud. It's on the homepage of my YouTube channel, Zion Law School. Watch that video. You'll see that Jerusalem didn't even exist at this time. It was a burning waste, just like Sodom and Gomorrah. So everything that is said to have happened in the Gospels could not have happened according to Moses. All right, according to Moses, the land was a burning waste, just like Sodom and Gomorrah. It was uninhabitable. All right, let's continue. Did y'all know that? Did y'all know that? So all of these events, see, if you know that information, then you know that all of these Gospels are nothing but fairy tales. So let's continue. Unless, of course, your position is that Moses, what Moses said, and he got his information from the Most High, unless your position is that that information is wrong. All right? Now, but anyway, we'll continue. Let's continue. So in other words, who are you going to believe? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John? And those books are according to. It doesn't say that they're the authors. You don't know who the author is of those books, right? It just says according to. So you don't know who wrote them, whether one man or a team. It just says according to Matthew, according to Mark. That means absolutely nothing to someone who can read. All right? I'm talking about understands language. Okay? So you don't know. So who are you going to believe? The gospel writer or the gospel writing teams? Okay? And these books were heavily edited because the initial books were written in Coptic Egyptian, by the Coptic Egyptians. Okay? And then they were edited. All right? So who are you going to believe, them or the words of Moses? Okay? Those are actually in the terms of the contract, what I'm talking about. All right? So who are you going to believe? The covenant, the contract? You decide. In addition, that the Jews themselves would plot an execution on one of the holiest days of the year is unthinkable. Even if they were prepared to risk defiling the holy day, that's Passover itself, where on earth would they have found the time for such chicanery? For the high priest and their minions, this was the busiest time of the year. In other words, that's like on New Year's Eve, right? Or whenever you're at your busiest time when you celebrate or celebrated Christmas. Where are you going to get time? Let's say you got a whole bunch of young ones. Where are you going to get time to do something else? You're going to work every day, right? You got to do all the preparation for Christmas or whatever, right? Your busiest time of the year. Think about that. Your busiest time of the year. Where are you going to get the time to meet with a bunch of people and start plotting on assassinating some preacher? See, it doesn't match up. This is the author's point. Now, I'm not saying I agree or disagree. I'm just explaining what he's writing, okay? It is significant that John's gospel, okay, so let's see what he's going to say about John. It's significant that John's gospel, which at this point seems to reflect a slightly different tradition from Mark, okay, dates the crucifixion differently. All right, so Mark is the first gospel. John comes out with his gospel, and in John's gospel, the crucifixion happened on a different day or different date. Y'all got that? And that's important. If you're going to believe these stories, that's important. Mark tells us that JC ate the Passover meal with his disciples on the night before his death. You can check that at Mark 14, verse 12 and 17. For John, however, this final meal, okay, so according to John, the Passover meal took place the day before Passover. The day of preparation. All right? So John calls the day before Passover the day of preparation. You can check that out at John chapter 13, verse 1 and chapter 19, verse 14. Okay, so in a court of law, what are you thinking? Look at this as though you are you're deciding. You put your judicial hat on, all right? And you're deciding a case. Two people come in with two different stories. All right? They come in, the dates are wrong. You gonna think somebody lying? Tell the truth, y'all. Put your judicial cap on. You're gonna think the story is true? If they come in with two different dates, Mark says that the Passover, JC ate the Passover meal on the day of Passover. That's important. Why? Because it's Passover. John says he ate the Passover meal the day before Passover. That's important. Why? Because he didn't eat it on Passover. Y'all see that? He ate the Passover meal on what John is calling, quote unquote, the day of preparation. Okay? Now, let's say you're the lawyer. You're the prosecutor or the defense attorney. How are you going to look at John and Mark? You're going to say, okay, we need to find out which one of these dudes are lying. Right? Okay, timing differs too. According to Mark, JC, the Christ figure, was on the cross from the third hour. The third hour is 9 a.m. Mark, again, is the first of the Gospels. Timing differs too. According to Mark, JC was on the cross from the 3rd hour, that's 9 a.m., to the 9th hour, that's 3 p.m., y'all. You can check this at Mark chapter 15, verse 25 and 34. Is it clear? Is it clear? Let me repeat it again. Timing differs too. According to Mark, JC was on the cross from the 3rd hour, which is 9 a.m., to the 9th hour, which is 3 p.m. Check that for yourself at Mark chapter 15, verse 24 and 34. Since the Jewish day began at sunset, JC the Christ figure's death would therefore occur on the same day as Passover. Thus, he's the Passover lamb. In John, however, okay, so when we see the word however, we're going to see a contrary point. Okay? In John, however, it is at noon. In John, however, it is at noon. In other words, JC the Christ figure is hung up on the cross or the stake at 12 o'clock noon on the day before Passover. Y'all heard? So now, not only did he eat the Passover the day before, not only did he eat the Passover meal the day before, one day before Passover, which is the day of preparation, he was also put up on the cross a day before Passover. All right? Not only a day before Passover, but at a different time, at 12 noon. Mark says he was put up on the cross at 9 a.m. in the morning on Passover. John says he was put up on the cross at 12 noon the day before Passover. So somebody got some explaining to do. Somebody has just committed perjury if you're in a court of law. Or both of them are lying, and both of them committed perjury. Y'all see what I'm saying? All right? Somebody's lying, and these are apostles. In John, however, it is at noon on the day before Passover that they led JC away to his death. John, you can check this at John chapter 19, verse 14. The precise time that the priests would be busy in the temple killing the thousands upon thousands of Passover lambs. Y'all hear that? According to John, they led the Christ figure, hung him up on the cross at 12 noon, the day before Passover, the day of preparation. And this is the time when the priests would be most busy slaughtering the lambs. So where did they get the time? Okay, so these are questions. Let's say if you're a lawyer and you're cross-examining John, you'd ask him these questions, right? So what John is saying doesn't make sense. But what Mark is saying doesn't make sense also. Why? Because it's Passover. Ain't nobody got time for that. the Romans are not going to hang somebody up, and they got people from all over the world involved in this faith, right? The Jewish faith. As much trouble as they had conquering the Jews, as the story goes, they're not going to incite more hatred and violence by stringing. They could have easily waited till tomorrow or a month later, wouldn't have made no never mind. Y'all see the point? And the Jews, the priests, they were too busy. Okay, and it would have made them look bad to go out and exterminate somebody who many people believe was a prophet on the Passover, right? The death angel is supposed to pass over, okay? But y'all gonna go out and exterminate somebody on the Passover? So it don't make sense. This is what the author is telling you. But I'm asking you to look at this from a non-religious, non-doctrinal point of view. Look at it as though you are a lawyer. You're in court dealing with a murder case. Mark is saying that the murder victim was killed on Passover. He ate the Passover meal, and at 9 a.m., he was killed, murdered. But John is saying that the victim, the murder victim, JC, ate the Passover meal one day before Passover. And he was hung up on the cross at 12 noon. See, it doesn't matter. Somebody's lying, or both of them are lying. Now what else, which other way can we go with this? All these people, they come out, right, to the temple. The priests are in there slaughtering the lambs. What's inside of the lamb's stomach, y'all? Digestive juices, right? Do y'all know how foul-smelling vomit is? When you vomit, where is that coming from? That's coming from your stomach, right? Imagine they're slaughtering these animals. What's happening to those digestive juices in their stomach? What's happening to the feces in their intestines? Can y'all imagine how the foul smell, the stench? Can you imagine? Can you imagine the stench of blood as it begins to, what is the word? What's the word, y'all? I can't think, the word is not coming to my mind. But y'all know when the blood, when something comes out, it's fresh, it doesn't have, but blood has a bad smell to me, right? But when it begins to break down, okay, and the bacteria begin to start getting at it, it's a stench. So now you got the urine, the feces. What are they? Let me ask y'all. It's thousands of sheep, right? Where and what are they doing with the feces and the urine and the vomit? What are they doing to prevent this from stinking up the whole place, making it smell unbearable? Y'all see what I'm saying? All of this, I don't know if y'all ever thought about it, but all of this, think, you got thousands, tens of thousands of people coming into Jerusalem, slaughtering thousands and thousands and thousands of lambs and whatever else they may have been doing. Do you know how much feces that is? Y'all think that's not gonna stink? Come on. Not just one sheep, its poop and its stomach content, but thousands and thousands. All right? Why aren't they talking about the stench? I know most of y'all, including me, if you smell animal poop, feces, and vomit, you think the priest, the Levite, they're slaughtering the sheep, right? You know how bloody they're going to be? They're going to have blood all over their face, all over their clothes. But yet they're going to be able to go outside and plot and scheme and conduct an assassination. They're full of blood. Their skin, can you imagine what they're going to look like? They got thousands of sheep to slaughter. Okay, so they're not able to take their time, make sure they don't get bloody, make sure they don't get feces or urine on them. All right, y'all go back to the devil's pulpit and look at the technique, the methodology, how they slaughtered some animals. All right, in the devil's pulpit, you're going to see that when they slaughtered some animals, certain animals, the stomach, you know, the digestive juices in the stomach, the feces and the urine, they would do it in such a way where it would splash on their face, in their eyes, and in their mouth, all over their body. So if you saw something like that, you saw a priest all bloody, full of digestive juices, feces all over him, you say he's disgusting. You would see that as being something out of a horror movie, and he got a big knife in his hand, full of blood, feces, stinking like you can't imagine. But anyway, that's neither here or there. Let's continue. What else are we dealing with here? What else are we dealing with here? Remember, this is Pisces. This is Pisces. Pisces. Duplicity. Do y'all see duplicity here? Mark says, one date and time, Passover, 9 a.m., hung on the stake. John says, the day before Passover, the day of preparation, hung on the stake or the cross at 12 noon. That's two different stories. Isn't that duplicity? Dual. Two means dual. Duplicity, lying, scandal. But can you accept it? See, can you accept this? Or are you calling me a blasphemer for bringing the truth and the light to you? But you're killing the Christ in skull place. Skull place being your own head. You're killing the truth and the light. So you crucify the Christ in your mind, your skull place. All right? Take note, scholars, take note. Try not to kill the truth and the light in your mind. All right? Clearly, this is duplicity. Clearly, this is a scandal. And this, my friend, one or both of them has committed perjury if we're in a court of law. Somebody lying. All right? So now let's continue. It is impossible that both John and Mark can be right on this. The two accounts cannot be reconciled. Y'all see that? It is what it is. Somebody lying. Somebody committed perjury. But should you be surprised? No. Why? Because Christianity is Pisces. Liars, cheaters, deceivers. This is Piscean energy. This is Pisces energy. Duplicity. Lie. Isn't that consistent with JC said? This is what a lot of people, I think those 5 people, I think this is why they unsubscribe. Let me tell you why. Because in the secret gospel, JC, well, no, let me not say that. Not even in the secret gospel. Let me just say this story. This offends a lot of people too, okay? But this is a bright light, all right? This is a bright light. This is the truth. When the apostles asked JC, why does he speak to the people in parables? What did he say, y'all? If you've been following me in this free astral theology class, what did JC say? He said, I speak to them in parables so that they won't understand, so that they won't be able to repent. See, if they understood, according to JC, they could repent and have a chance to be saved. So therefore, he spoke to them in parables, meaning that he wanted them to burn in hell. Or what? Or die and not be resurrected. In other words, JC wanted to keep them in the dark, ignorant. Why? So they could not repent. Why? So they could not be saved. Y'all see? With that in consideration, is this any surprise? No, it's not. Furthermore, JC, if you understand the linguistics, go check the Devil's Pulpit. JC made his escape. And it was Simon the Cyrenian, or something like that, who was hung up on the cross. In his stead, JC bounced. All right, JC bounced. See the deception, the scam, the duplicity? Y'all see it? Don't believe me? Download the link to the free PDF in the Devil's Pulpit. You can read it yourself. JC bounced. I know it because of the language, the linguistics. This is why y'all need to learn linguistics. That's why I made the 101 Ancient Ibaryath course almost free. It's only $10 per month to subscribe. You can cancel anytime, but why would you want to do that? See, when you start to understand linguistics, this opens up the world. This takes the blindfolds off. Okay? Now you can begin to break the spells the same way you see me breaking the spells. What are the spells? The spells are words. Words, written words. Ancient records, the writings. Okay? In modern times, what are the spells? Hymns, songs, music. Y'all love y'all gospel music, right? I know Hebrew Israelites, they still listening to gospel music. They can't give it up. And they justify it by creating their own gospel music. Okay? So the spells, the enchantments, what else? The sermons that you just love so much. You don't want to let those go. All right? The gospel music, the other religious music, the sermons, the prayers that you love so much. All right? All of these are incantations, spells. All right? Spells. The records have been edited. Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 8. Clear? Is that clear? All right. But y'all do what you want. Piscean energy is very toxic, so toxic, as the author here brought out, that the Egyptians represented anything that was odious, anything that was Extremely negative, bad, they represented it as fish, the Pisces fish. Okay? The Dogon, half fish, half man. See, extremely negative. Okay? Let's continue. But the discrepancy is really irrelevant. Okay, well, that's interesting. Y'all hear this? The author is saying that these different dates of the most important event, Christ giving his life as a ransom, a one-time, a propitiatory sacrifice for all. In other words, Christ died for you. The author is saying that two witnesses have that death. They have that murder on two different days and times. The author here is telling you that's not important. Well, if you were dealing with a murder case, would you say that the date and the time of the murder is important? Of course you would. But the author here says, but the discrepancy, okay, that's a discrepancy between the date and the time, is really irrelevant. I strongly disagree. Let's continue. Both authors, that's Mark and John, have the crucifixion occur during the Passover season. So now they're explaining. Now they're explaining it. We used to call stuff like this nigga-splaining when I was young. Okay? Both authors have the crucifixion occurred during the Passover season, despite the historical unlikelihood of this, because it is symbolically appropriate that it should be so. Okay, so y'all see where this is going. He's about to get into symbolism. The fact that the day and the time of the assassination of J.C. the Christ figure occurred doesn't matter. What matters is that it occurred during the Passover. Do y'all see how ridiculous this sounds? Try arguing that in a murder case. Well, my client was at so-and-so's house, and we have 5 witnesses who will testify that he was there, they saw him. Okay? And the murder happened the day before. Okay? Murder happened the day before. Everybody, 5 people know where my client was. Okay, facial reading of the Gospel of John seems to suggest that the crucifixion of our Lord occurred before the Passover. See, now, look at this, scholars. You're supposed to put your faith in Christ dying to save you. Why would there be any question about that? That should be something that's clear and obvious as day. It should be no question about it. Why? Because that he died as your Savior should be firm, so that you don't have to doubt or wonder why. That's like saying, who's the daddy? Who the daddy? Maybe it's you, maybe it's not, it's the other guy. There should be no ambiguity about it. He died on this day at that time, or he was put on the cross on this day at that time. Everybody's consistent. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John should have the same story. Why? Why? So that you can put your faith in it. and not feel stupid. Both of these people, John and Mark, are telling two different stories. How can you trust it if you use your mind? You cannot trust it if you're using your analytical mind. Why? Because somebody's committing fraud, perjury. You'd have to just blindly accept that he died to save you. Because if he did not die, that's the first thing. If he didn't die, okay, he's not your Savior. Clear? If the man is unsure that the baby is his, how is he going to respond to the woman? No, you need to be sure. The evidence needs to be sound. Okay? No question about it. But here, the most important event in Christianity, the thing that everything hangs upon, they lying. Somebody's lying. Y'all see what I'm saying? I'm not sure if I'm making my point clear. But there ain't no way in the world I'm going to look at it this way. Well, never mind. I think it's clear. Let's move on. Both authors have the crucifixion occurred during the Passover season. Despite the historical unlikelihood of this, we discussed that, right? About the priests and the Romans. Ain't nobody got time for that during Passover. Because it is symbolically appropriate. Okay, so when you start hearing words like symbolically and metaphors, they want you to transport yourself into the narrative. Get emotional, feel sorry for the Christ figure. So that you can what? Accept it. You're now in the story, emotionally. In the story. And out of your pity for him, you convince yourself that this is true and that these different dates and times don't matter. All right? So you just propagandize your own mind. You just drank the Kool-Aid. All right? You allow yourself to be transported into the narrative, into the gospel story. Okay? So you brainwash yourself. They just gave you the opportunity to do it. All right? So let's continue. John is concerned to show JC as the sacrificial lamb. So now here's explaining. Here's explaining. Don't worry that the date is wrong. Don't worry that the times don't match. The dates don't match. Okay, don't worry about that. Okay, we don't know if he was exterminated on Passover or the day before. Don't worry about that. What's important is this. Listen. John is concerned to show you, the reader, the believer. John is concerned to show JC as the sacrificial lamb whose death was prefigured in the centuries-old practice of animal offerings. Now, is this an excuse as to why John lied? Listen, John is concerned to show, in other words, John's motive in his writings, his motive for lying, John is concerned, his motive is to show JC as the sacrificial lamb, whose death was prefigured in the centuries-old practice of animal offerings. Y'all hear this? In other words, the priests, they were offering up animals because one day JC would be offered up as a sacrifice, right? But when JC gets sacrificed, no other animals would need to be sacrificed. In the religion that I was in, they used to teach the same thing. This right here, okay? So this is why John lied. Let's continue. And so he, that is John, makes the time of his, that's JC's, execution correspond with the time of the ritual killing. Okay? So if John lied about this to make you believe that JC was exterminated, assassinated, at the time when the priests are slaughtering the animals, the Passover lambs, so that you could see that JC is the Passover lamb. And after him, no other animal would need to be sacrificed. Why do you need to lie to establish that? Y'all understand me? Why do you need to lie to establish that? Well, what else have you lied about to establish a belief? Y'all hear me? What else have the gospel writers lied about to establish or to make a connection between the Old Testament alleged practices and the Gospels? Y'all see it? In other words, he made up a story to make Christ's sacrifice jive with Old Testament animal sacrifices. He made it up. The author just said that. So what other events are also contrived, made up to link them to Old Testament events, to give them authority? I hope everyone sees what's happening here. And according to this Christian scholar, it's okay to lie, to establish a connection between an alleged practice or events in the Old Testament with the Gospels. Paul himself said that he would lie to forward his gospel, didn't he? He said he would lie. He admitted to being a liar. Right? But y'all let him slide on that. All right? So imagine the story like this. Imagine that there's no connection. Let's say John didn't lie. And he does not connect the assassination of JC the Christ figure to the alleged animal sacrifices or practice of sacrificing animals in the Old Testament. Well, now what happens? That whole doctrine falls apart. The whole doctrine falls apart that Christ prefigured, or rather that the priests were sacrificing lambs to show that one day Christ, JC the Christ figure, would be sacrificed. That whole thing falls apart. Now what do you have? Y'all see what I'm saying? I hope this is clear. I feel like I'm not making myself clear, but I'm not on the other side listening. If y'all follow what I'm saying, put a 1 in the comment section. Give me some feedback, please. All right. If you think I'm a blasphemer, put a 2. No, if you follow my logic, put a 1. If you disagree with my logic, never mind. Forget it. I don't really care. I want to finish this paragraph. I'm delivering information. What you do is your business. Okay? Let's finish this paragraph off. All right. Although we cannot readily discern such a theological motive in Mark. Theological, y'all, that's doctrine. The motive is doctrine, to establish doctrine. The motive is not truth. It is theological. That's Burger King has a menu. McDonald's has a menu. KFC has a menu. All right? Midi writes, and is pushing his text in that direction as far as a record of history and permissible linguistics usage allows. Thank you, Midi. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Everyone, give consideration. When you watch this video again or watch it now, check out what Midi wrote in the comments section, okay? Check it out. Give it some serious consideration. Okay. Let's continue. All right. So this author, this scholar is saying that John's motive is theological. See, to establish, to connect Christ's assassination to the practice of the priest sacrificing lambs the day before the Passover. Purely theological, to make a doctrine, to connect the Old and the New Testaments, quote unquote. All right. We can legitimately assume from the imagery in the narrative that he associates JC's death. Y'all see, we can assume from the imagery. Now, what is that doing? That's suggesting, that's hypnotic, that's suggestive that you start to do what? Imagine. Visualize. What was happening then? Now you've transported yourself into the narrative. This is why words, writings, movies, music, that's why they're called spells. They can assist you, motivate you, without you even being aware of it, to transport yourself into a story. And you do that often enough. If the feelings and the visions are intense enough, you begin to believe it and live your life by it. All right? This is why they call it spells. And spells will bind you. Why? Because you believe it. See, in your mind, the way your mind works, your mind will always create your beliefs as your reality. All right? You don't believe it, that will no longer be your reality. It will no longer happen in your life. Okay? Get the religion, the Christianity out of your mind, and then those demons and all of the other stuff associated that comes with that will also disappear from your life. Let's continue. I want to finish this paragraph before I go. All right. So, although we cannot readily discern such a theological motive in Mark, we can legitimately assume from the imagery that the narrative that he associates JC's death with the Passover for two reasons. Okay, so now we're talking about Mark. The first reason Mark is saying JC died on the Passover, the first is related to the fact that the Passover is a springtime festival. Okay? That's the natural beginning of the year, according to modern astrology. The second reason concerns the approach of the new age of Pisces. Oh, Pisces is the extremely negative, toxic energy. And we see that through Christianity, don't we? since they've been in power? All right. When the equinoctial point would move out of the constellation of the Ram, that's Aries, and into the constellation of the Fish. Mark's symbolism in these 3 chapters is based on 2 cycles. So the explanation of the lie is astrotheological. All right? It's explaining the ending of spring energy. Remember we discussed that? And the beginning of what? Not spring energy. Yeah, well, the beginning of the end of Aries energy. And the beginning of Piscean energy. Ending of spring, beginning of summer. Okay, Midi, his attempted illusion still must give way to the reality of the history he is recording, no matter how artistically done. Okay, thank you, Midi. Very much appreciated. Very much appreciated. Everybody's point of view matters here. When y'all comment, it makes the presentation richer. It makes it richer. I don't know everything. I never claim to. Okay? What I may not see, somebody else sees it. Okay? So please, everyone, have the courage to put what you got in the comments. All right? Don't be selfish with your knowledge or opinions. Thank you so much, Midi. All right? So let's continue. The second reason concerns the approach of the new age of Pisces, when the equinoctial point would move out of the constellation of the Ram and into the constellation of the Fish, which is Pisces. Mark's symbolism in these 3 chapters is based on 2 cycles. That's the explanation for his lie. Somebody lie him, one or both. The first is the ordinary yearly cycle, which ends with the sun moving from Pisces to Aries at the equinox. The second is the cycle of the great year. See the forgotten language of the stars. So I'm going to do the forgotten language of the stars after we complete the zodiac signs, okay? That's the next book. I talked about it in the video I did yesterday. Okay, in which the equinoctial point itself moves backwards through the constellations of the zodiac. That's the progression, the procession of the. We will examine them in turn. So I'm going to come back, y'all. I got to go. I'm late for an appointment. That's why I rushed through this. So on my next presentation, within the next couple hours, I'm going to go through the second half of this paragraph again. Okay, so I can give it justice. Shalawama, be sure to support my project to write the book of the law back into ancient Ibaryath. Some of y'all call it Paleo Hebrew, and also modern English. Okay, easy to understand modern English. All right, I'll remove all of the lies and deceit, all of the mythology, all of the injections. I will remove them. And I'll add back everything that was hidden, including cosmology, astrology, and the natural law principles and concepts, like SG, okay, like estate law, like attainders, bills of attainders. The other one, I had something on my mind, but it escapes me. Like notice, etc., etc., etc. Shalom, y'all. If you want to support my work, if you want to do what I do, if you feel it in your heart to support my work, links to many books that I've written, online courses, live course, all of that is in the description area of the video. My Cash App is $DrYasapa. My PayPal is paypal.me/Zion Law School. Shalom and Islam to all of the Moors.